If you're looking to start a Star Wars comic book collection but you're not sure where to start, watch this video and I'll help you out. Hey guys, gals, and everyone in between, it's your boy, Steel Flex. Yes, and today I'm going to be helping you out with Star Wars comic book collecting. Before I dive in, I want to thank the 25 people that have subscribed to the channel. Thank you so much. And if you're new to the channel, if you'd like to join the gang, then please hit the subscribe button down below. It would help us so much. But anyways, let's get going with the video. So today's video is about Star Wars comic book collecting. And before we begin, I want to clarify that we are talking about from Disney and forward comic book collecting. Therefore, we aren't going to be talking about any of the Legends content or anything that came out before. And for those of you that don't know, Star Wars canon is anything that is true to the entire story and the connectivity of Star Wars. So the following things are going to be labeled as canon: the movies that have come out, the TV shows that have been made, and any of the novels or the comic books that were created while Disney was in control of the publishing. So if you see any books that are labeled Legends or anything like that, then that's saying that it's not canon anymore, meaning that those stories don't really matter and they don't really exist in the current Star Wars universe. So like I said before, Disney bought the franchise of Lucasfilm, which is also Star Wars. And they wanted to start a comic line because they wanted to branch out and do all things Star Wars, of course. And since they already own Marvel, they decided, hey, let's make Star Wars comics again. And the reason I say again is because they had a run of Marvel Star Wars comic books back in the day, but those again aren't canon because they weren't made by Disney Star Wars. So Marvel started making these comics and they realized, hey, this is a good way to make canon content. However, they wanted to make some content that was actually for kids because comic books are seen more as, you know, the teenage and the older fan. However, they wanted to open it up for kids of all ages, of anyone. How can we make this for everybody, from people up to 90 years old, for kids down to 6 years old? So they decided, let's make different kinds of comic chains. So how did they do that? Disney found a publishing group called IDW. So IDW came in while Marvel was already here, and they decided they're both going to make comic books. The Marvel comics are going to be for the more mature viewer, maybe more adult or teenage age, while the IDW comics are going to be for the all ages category, so anyone from a kid to an adult can read them. Not saying that they can't read the Marvel comics, however, the IDW ones are for the lower reading level, if that makes sense. Now, after a while, IDW had been making comics for Star Wars. However, Disney wanted to find a new place to get their all-ages Star Wars comics to come from. So, within this past year, I believe, they got rid of IDW and they brought in Dark Horse. Dark Horse is a comic publishing source as well as IDW and Marvel. They even made a whole bunch of Star Wars material in the past. However, of course, because Disney bought all of Star Wars, none of those are really canon, except for, I believe, one. And that one, of course, is the Darth Maul, Son of Dathomir comic line. He's a survivor. He made it. So just to reiterate, right now, for all canon Star Wars comic books at least, we have Marvel Comics, we have IDW, and now that IDW's gone, we have Dark Horse Comics again. So all three of these companies have come together and made Star Wars comics that are all intertwined in the actual Star Wars universe, which means that they're all intertwined with the movies, meaning that you could see something happen in a comic that could adversely affect something that happens in a movie or a show. This can be seen in the Book of Boba Fett, where Chrysanthemum comes in, who was originally a character from the comic books, and he came in and he confronted Boba Fett. Now that we know the difference between canon and Legends, let's find out about the actual comics. You're going to want to know what you want to start collecting, so here's how I can help you out with that. Comics come in all different shapes, sizes, and types of material. You're going to have your comic books, your individual issues, where it's the numbers of 1 through however many are in that comic line. You're also going to have your graphic novels, which is a good way to play catch-up if you just want all the story right there. Another title for graphic novels is trade paperback, so it's just, interchangeable. You also have an omnibus, or an omnibuy, if that's plural, I don't know, which is a whole bunch of the comics all in one book, kind of like a hardback or something like that, just so you can get a whole bunch of material all together. Now you're going to have all these comics that come out, and you're going to see different covers and everything, and you're going to be a little confused as to what you're going to be looking for. And that's totally fine, we're going to get into that later. But I just want to bring up variant versions of covers. Variant versions of covers are essentially what they sound like. It's just a variant of a certain cover for a comic book. So whenever you're out looking for comic books or looking online or anything like that, just be aware that there are different covers for comic books. So if you're looking for one issue specifically, always check out what variant covers they have, just in case you're out in the wild looking for a comic book and you are trying to find that one, because it might be hiding from you. and you just don't know. So you might be asking yourself, well, where do I begin? Well, let me help you. If you are curious as to how many comics there are in the current canon timeline, I'm gonna have you go somewhere. Look up Wookieepedia on Google or Safari or whatever search engine you have. Wookieepedia is a place that has a whole bunch of canon and legends information about Star Wars. About anything that you could possibly want to look up about Star Wars, you'll find it on this website. So what you're going to do is go on Wookieepedia and look up comic list, and it's going to come up with the complete comic list of all comic books that have ever been released from Star Wars. So once you click on this link, you're going to see a whole bunch of titles that you might not know what they are. Well, you're going to scroll or you're going to hit the index and you're going to find 2015 run. Once you find the 2015 run, that means you have found the list of all things that are canon Star Wars comics. When you find that list, you're going to see that it's going to say ongoing list, and you're going to go through and you're going to see all the current ongoing issues that they are making. That means that this is an ongoing series that's coming out and there's no end in sight until they decide to cut it off. Then once you scroll down, you're going to see that there's a completed section. That means all these runs for these comics will not have any more coming out past the number that they currently have. Once you scroll through all these, you'll see that there are certain numbers next to the titles. You'll see Obi-Wan 1, Obi-Wan 2. That means that's a specific issue of which of those comics. So if you have a 1 through 5 of anything like that, then that means that that comic run has 5 issues and each of those is all in one story. So it's highly suggested that you try and get 1 through however many there are and not just get random ones throughout. Now, because there are some rare comic books, something you can see is, if you go to the bottom of the specific run, you're going to see that it says something called Collected. Collected means, of course, it's a collection of the entire run, and they usually have a graphic novel. That's what it's mainly for. A graphic novel, like I said earlier, is a collection of a certain set of stories. So in this case, let's go down to the Thrawn comic series. You see that there's a Thrawn graphic novel. That means that graphic novel is going to contain all 6 of the Thrawn stories. Say you look at the 2015 Star Wars run, and you notice there's 75 issues. If you're looking to just understand the story, then the graphic novels or the trade paperbacks are probably the best way to go. However, if you want every single issue, it's going to be hard, but, you know, there you go. And these are currently listed in the order of when they were released in real time. So that means that you're going to have something that was in the sequels that came out before the prequels, and it might seem out of whack. So if you ever get confused at what time period these events are happening in, I'll drop a link down below to another Wookieepedia site, or a source, or whatever you want to call it. This will bring up the complete canon timeline of all comics. So whenever you scroll through this list, you're going to see all things in the timeline order. That way you can understand where pieces of the comic issue should go. So going back to the list of all the comics that have come out for Star Wars, there's a little issue you might run into. I personally keep track of all the comics that I find because I want to make sure that if I go to a store, I don't buy a duplicate of something. However, a lot of comic book apps on your phone, they tend to charge you money for keeping a subscription of what comics you have. And it's really sucky if you're someone new that just wants something easy to track your stuff with. So I came up with a solution. I know it's not, the best, however, it's fairly simple. If you go to the top, to the ongoing series, and you hold your finger and of course drag it all the way down, and you copy and paste it into your notes, it works just the same. That way whenever you go through, you can even emoji, check mark, or whatever, anything like that. That way you can see which ones you have and you can have it on the go with you. Now of course you got to keep it updated. The website will update on the ongoing series and everything like that. However, your phone won't update. So make sure that you copy and paste the new links and everything over. Speaking of links, it's very nice because if you're ever out in the wild and you're trying to figure out, which comic issue is this? Then there's a very simple solution. All you have to do is click on the link of, say, Star Wars number 17. You click on that issue and it should pop up and you should see all the covers that come with it. It's super nice because all the links show you every single individual comic issue and it shows you all their covers and every informational thing that you need to know about it. So if you're ever out looking for comics and you look at an issue and you're like, I don't know which series you're part of, you can click on the link on the website, or you can click the link in your notes if you dragged it over, and you can see all the information about it. And it'll show all the characters in it, it'll show the covers and all the variants and everything like that. That way you're going to be on top of all the information you need. And if you scroll below all the Marvel comics, you're also going to see the ongoing and the completed series for Dark Horse, as well as IDW. Now, of course, be careful with the Dark Horse comics page. I don't know if they have it separated with canon and non-canon yet. So always make sure that you know which ones are canon, and a quick Google search will tell you what it is. Going back to the second page I showed you, if you want to find out the current date or the creator of whatever comic you're looking at, if you scroll over to the side, you're going to see all this information so you can see the release date and whatnot. However, if you are curious about which issue is going to be coming out next and you want to see what's coming in the future, I'll drop another link down below so you can see the future issues of the comic books that are coming out. Again, on Wookieepedia, so shout out to them. But basically, this link is going to bring you to the Future Comics of Star Wars page, and it's going to show you everything week by week of what's coming out. That way you can kind of plan out your list if you paste it over to your notes. That way you know what you need to update, or if you want to have certain series and not have certain series, like if you want to only do Marvel Comics and not do Dark Horse or anything like that. And if you're like me and you're kind of crazy and you want to know the exact timeline order of everything Star Wars canon, then we got a link for that as well. If you just want to click on it, you can see the order of everything. That way you can list your comics and your books and your movies and your TV shows, everything you need. I know it seems crazy, but there are some people that really just want to know the actual order of things. Me being one of those people, I'm an absolute psychopath. Not saying you're a psychopath, but I'm a psychopath about it. But anyways, if you want the entire list, I got it down below for you. Now the next step for deciding what you want to do with your collection is where in the timeline do you want to start collecting. So you got to pick your start. So you need to know if you want to start collecting with time periods or if you want to start collecting based on characters. So these lists I gave you down below give you a good idea as to what kind of comics and who the comics are about. And I think it's a great idea to go through those and kind of get an idea for what comics have come out. That way whenever you're looking into, okay, I'm deciding to do this, you have a good idea as to what you need to buy in a certain order. Let's say you want to start your comic collection and you want to start with Boba Fett. Use these links down below to help you research Boba Fett comics just to see what he's in. That way you can see, okay, I need to collect this series or these specific ones. Because not always is it just going to be one character in one run and that's it. For instance, we have the new Obi-Wan run that came out a few months ago. However, he's in plenty of other comics, so, that's not going to be an issue if you want to see more of him. But it does give you a good base as to where you should start. So something I find a little bit difficult is whenever I'm looking for a certain individual comic, but I know it's going to be a little rare, so what should you do? What I would do is I'd click on that issue in the notes where it has the hyperlink of it, and I scroll down to collected issues near the bottom to see what graphic novel that it'll be part of. So let's say in the Star Wars 2015 run, I want to find out what graphic novel I could find issue number 38 in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find issue 38 of the 2015 timeline. I'm going to go to my notes, I'm going to hit the hyperlink. I'm going to scroll to the collected issues and I'm going to see that it's part of this certain graphic novel. That way I can look and say, hey, this is part of this graphic novel, and I have it there and I don't have to worry about finding the individual comic anywhere. This helps especially if comic books are super rare in whatever you're looking for. This also helps because it collects an entire arc of a story. So say you're missing something in the middle of your arc. However, it's kind of vital because you need that one issue but you can't find it anywhere. The best idea is to get a graphic novel and just buy it so you can complete the story without having to hunt it down somewhere or spend a lot of money on it on eBay. And like I said earlier, always be on the lookout for variant comic covers. If you're looking for a certain comic issue but you want to see if there's a variant cover for it, click on the issue, scroll down, and then you'll find out all the variant covers. And this helps out a lot if you're looking for a current issue that's coming out right now, but you can't find any of the regular comic issues. And if you don't care to spend an extra few bucks to get the variant copy just so you have that comic, then you're all good. Now if you're in a shop and you're looking for a certain comic but you see a cover and you're not familiar with what it is, go on Google and type in key phrases like Chewbacca, or if they're holding a weapon or something like that, and then add comic cover at the end of it, and then it should come up and it should tell you at the bottom what comic run it's from. Also, something super helpful for graphic novel hunting, if you're looking through and you're trying to see what the graphic novel contains, flip over the graphic novel, look at the bottom left, and it should tell you what stories it covers. All Star Wars graphic novels have a certain number of how many issues are in that graphic novel. That way you can say, oh, it collects this through this, and you'll be covered for those issues. So here's a few tips that I got whenever I began comic collecting that helped me out along the way. Make sure you get a box or somewhere to store your comic books. What I did was I started collecting them and I just sat them on a shelf with no protection, no covers or sleeves or anything like that. And I could definitely tell that was going to be an issue because there were 30 just stacked on top of each other. Increasing would start and I wouldn't want that to happen. So something you can do is you can get a box. I have one right over here. That way you can stack them kind of like they do in the store. That way there's no bending or anything like that. So make sure you get some sleeve protectors. This is the one I use. Sorry about the glare. And make sure you also get some cardboard backs. That way it stays flat on here and you put it in the plastic and nothing gets on it like scratches or liquids or anything like that. And then in the long run you'll have something that looks like this. So you'll have the back, slide it in there with the comic in it, and you have the plastic wrap around it. Good as gold. And while I have it out, notice if you can see it, IDW up here. That shows you that it's an IDW comic, of course. And up here at the top, you can see that it says Marvel, meaning, of course, it's part of the Marvel run. Next, make sure that you know that different characters are going to have different runs. So as you saw Darth Vader, if you scrolled through, you saw that he had multiple runs. He has a 2015, 2017, and he has an ongoing 2020 run. So you're going to have multiple Darth Vader issue number 1, so you'll have 3 of those. So always make sure that you know either who the creator is or know what year that it was created in. An easy way to do this is you can go on the app, click on the issue number, and you'll see if the cover matches with the cover that you have in store or online or anything like that. That way you aren't multi-buying the same issue or just getting a variant copy or anything like that. My battery on my camera is dying, so I have to hurry up and get this done, so we're going to speed round some of these. If you look at the back of a graphic novel and it says that it has a certain issue in it that you've never heard of, it's probably because it's part of a bigger story arc. Scrolling down to the bottom of the all comic list that I showed you earlier, you'll see one-shots and annuals. That's a list of comics that have come out that are single issues that go along with either a bigger storyline or just, again, one-shots that are just by themselves. The Screaming Citadel is a story that has a one-shot, however that one-shot connects to all these other runs like Dr. Aphra and Star Wars. Next, always be sure that you know Marvel and IDW do not mix with their runs, meaning that IDW has Star Wars Adventures and Marvel has just Star Wars as their runs. So although both of them are canon, they aren't the same thing, if that makes sense. Star Wars Adventures 1 doesn't mix with Star Wars 1 or Star Wars 2, if that makes sense. They're all their own thing, and these are all their own thing. They are both canon, they are both in the same universe, however they cover very different areas. I think I've covered that enough, but if you have questions, leave it down below. This is something I think everyone should know. The price for comic books are fairly nice. I collect Funko Pops, as you're aware, and Funko Pops are about 11 to 15 to 25 to however much money, depending on how big or how rare. But all they do is just sit here and they look pretty. But comic books are very nice because you're getting lore and canon information and everything, and you're getting reading material. And most of them for just single issues are about $4 to $5. Graphic novels are anywhere from, I'd say, 10 to 20 bucks. So they're pretty cheap, I'm not gonna lie. Some used bookstores tend to have a lot of these graphic novels on sale for like $5, and they collect like 6 comics in it. So that's a good amount of money that you'd be saving there. Another thing I do want to bring up is if you do end up copying and pasting that list of the collection of comics, something I do to make it easier for myself is I have an emoji system. Basically, I use a green check mark by all the individual issues that I have. I have a yellow binder for things that are collected in a graphic novel. So let's just say that I have Star Wars 1 through 6 or something like that. At the bottom of the collected, I put a check mark near the one I have there. But then whenever I go up to the top, I put the yellow next to the certain issues that it's collected by. And if I ever have a variant cover, I put a red book. That way it's still the book, it's still the issue or whatever, however, it's a different cover. So if I ever want to go back in the future? If I ever want to go back and I want to collect the actual cover, then I know which one I need. Or if there's multiple variants, I'm going to be able to see which one it is because I'll put the variant and then I'll click on the link, see what the variant cover title is, and then I'll put it in the note. Something else that's good with this shared note idea is that you can share it with people in your family or friends. That way they can see which ones you need, and then they can say, oh, well, I got you this one because I clicked on it and I saw that you don't have it. As long as it's in your notes, they can see and they can be updated with which ones you need and which ones you don't need. That way, if you're Christmas shopping, as you know it's coming up soon, you know which one to get your friend if you're watching this. One thing that I would like to note about the variant covers is however cool they are super cool looking. It's still the same story. So if you're just looking for the story, don't overpay on the variants. Same story, get the normal cover, you're all good. Something else you should know, if you're going through the timeline site and you're looking through to see what happens in the next era of this, blah, 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 you might notice that there's some random names for titles and you don't know what they're a part of. They're probably part of the IDW books because the IDW comics tend to have 2 issues in one actual comic since they're shorter stories. So what you can do to check is you can click on the title and you can see what published it and where it's coming from. I will say not all the time are they from IDW, but most of the time they are. So always just be aware of that. And one of the last points I want to make is why comic books are even worth looking at. Like I said before, it involves lore, in-depth analysis on certain characters and ideas and what's going on in the universe. And it can add backstory for characters that you really want more of, like Aurra Sing, Boba Fett, a lot of people that are kind of one-offs in, a certain movie or whatever. I like to think of it as kind of Clone Wars, but in comic book form. Because Clone Wars, you have all these random episodes coming out week by week, but they might not connect to each other. However, they can help out with overall understanding of a certain character or a storyline going forward. And I know a lot of adults, they don't like reading all the comics that are IDW, especially because they're more kid-friendly or, whatever. However, they are all canon still, and they are all equally as important as the Marvel comics. So just keep that in mind just in case. I think that is everything I wanted to talk about for the comics today. I know, that was a shoosh ton of information thrown your way, and I apologize. However, I have a lot to say, as you are well aware of my love for Star Wars. So that's going to do it for me today. I hope I helped you out, and if not, again, apologies, but I really think this stuff is cool. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and if you have any questions, please leave them down below. Again, thank you to the 25 people that have subscribed. If you are new to the channel, please consider subscribing. We're trying to get to 30. Don't know if it'll happen. I hope it happens. But yeah, so I hope to see you in the next video. As always, this has been Steel Flare.